في غزة هنا ندير الأمور.
Months after its takeover of Gaza, Hamas says it's ready to talk with Fatah. But what will it take to achieve lasting reconciliation? And can political progress with Israel be made without Palestinian unity? This is Inside Story. Hello, I'm Jane Dutton. Ismail Haniyeh says Hamas is ready for talks with Fatah and that Hamas's rule over Gaza was only meant to be temporary. But the Palestinian Authority has rejected the idea of dialogue, saying that Hamas has to give up control of Gaza first. Shireen Tadros looks back at the tension between the two groups since the Gaza takeover and the prospects for peace.
A violent start to the summer in Gaza. Two factions vying for power over the Palestinian-occupied territories. Territories that were quickly splitting into two. But after months of stalemate, Hamas leader Ismail Haniyeh is now saying he's ready for talks. More significantly, for the first time, indicating Hamas may be prepared to give up Gaza, that the takeover was never meant to last.
We realize that the situation in Gaza is temporary and never intended for it to be permanent. We're acting on this basis.
But for President Mahmoud Abbas, this may be an empty gesture. The Fatah leadership has always maintained that any talks must be unconditional. Gaza must be returned to Palestinian Authority control before any dialogue can begin.
Hamas seeks to hold talks after they perpetrated the coup. Now they send mediators from different countries of the world calling for talks. We've said it before and we say it again. Return things as they were before the coup and we shall negotiate.
The tension between Hamas and Fatah climaxed this year in June. Hamas took over Palestinian Authority compounds in Gaza, imposing their authority. People were left in no doubt as to who was in control on the streets of Gaza City. Hundreds of Fatah supporters fled to the occupied West Bank, where the Palestinian Authority under the leadership of President Abbas were in control. Gaza and the West Bank were not just geographically split, they were now politically divided too. Just days later, Abbas declared the Hamas government in Gaza illegitimate and appointed a new emergency cabinet headed by Prime Minister Salam Fayyad, who was to replace Ismail Haniyeh.
Good morning.
As the international community rallied around the new government in Ramallah, Hamas and Haniyeh were isolated by them. The international embargo that was crippling the economy was quickly lifted in the West Bank, while Palestinians in Gaza continue to suffer under its effects. Haniyeh's statement may not be anything the president hasn't heard before.
Go together, yes.
But at a time when Abbas is taking center stage and talks about Middle East peace, the offer comes as a reminder to the international community, including Arab states, that Hamas is still a player that wants to be engaged.
Well, this isn't the first attempt at mediation between Fatah and Hamas. After weeks of factional fighting, Saudi Arabia hosted talks this February with the promise of massive aid. The outcome, a power-sharing deal that brought rivals together under a government of national unity. But with that agreement now in shreds and the rancor over the Hamas takeover of Gaza, can outsiders really help? Well, joining our discussion today, our guests in Gaza, Hazem Abu Shanab, a Fatah spokesperson in Beirut, Osama Hamdan, Hamas representative in Lebanon. And let me start off with you, Mr. Hamdan. Before we talk about the outside players here, let's look at the inside players. How seriously should we take this offer by Ismail Haniyeh that the takeover of Gaza was only temporary?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. I think we have said that from the first days. We said that from the first day. We said we are treating a kind of security disturbance. There was some leaders in the security forces who were controlling the security forces for their own behalves against undermining the national unity government. They were having their own plans against the Palestinian unity government. And we said that from the first day, and we are still committed to this. Mr. Ismail Haniyeh said that just to remind the people that we are still committed to that. I don't think that he said something new.
Well, it certainly seems that this is more of a gesture to open up some sort of dialogue. We had no idea when it initially happened how long this takeover would be in place. What is he hoping to achieve from it by announcing that now?
Well, announcing that now because he is trying to say also when we are dealing and managing the daily life of the people in Gaza, we are not trying to create something new or to create new facts on the ground. We are still managing the things in Gaza in the same system which was before in order to make it easy to have this dialogue and to make it possible for a kind of success for this dialogue.
Mr. Abu Shanab, is Fatah going to take the bait?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. It's not a bait, it's a kind of show from Hamas towards the international community. It's trying to send a message to the international community. You are trying to deal with President Mahmoud Abbas as the legal president of the Palestinians as a whole. Hamas is sending its message to the international community saying, hey, we are here and you should just give a hint to us and watch us. We are existed and we want to be existed in the next steps you are going to work. I don't believe that Fatah is going to work dealing with this kind of media show Hamas is playing. I think that there should be a kind of concrete or realistic steps Hamas must take, and we encouraging Hamas to do this.
And what are those concrete steps that you are demanding? What are those concrete steps that you are demanding?
To forget about the takeover of Gaza, to forget about the consequences of the takeover of Gaza from Hamas. We believe that the coup did happen, but the consequences can be overcome. It means that Hamas should stop its steps, its measurements that it took in the Gaza Strip, which means that we can get back again to building up a kind of good atmosphere between Fatah, Hamas, and all the Palestinian parties. The ball now is in Hamas playground. We are waiting for their step.
Mr. Hamdan, Ismail Haniyeh suggested that he might give up control, something you said that he denounced from the beginning. What exactly does this mean? Will he relinquish all control? Will he dismantle the executive forces?
Well, I have to say first, we are not doing any show for the national unity government, international community, because we believe what had happened inside the Palestinian territories, it came from the interference of the United States and the Israelis inside the Palestinian issue. The second point, I believe we are not looking forward for those negotiations with the Israelis, because everyone knows that they will give nothing to Abu Mazen. He is more weak than to gain anything from them. And even Olmert, he is more weak to give anything. When we say Mr. Ismail Haniyeh, when he dealt with the security forces issue, he was the prime minister, and I think he has the legitimacy to do this. When he did that, he declared that clearly. We are trying to secure the Palestinian people. We are trying to secure the daily life for the Palestinian people. Those leaders of the security forces, they were undermining this security. When he is offering now to have this dialogue, he's talking about a fact which we believed in. All the Palestinian problems internally can be solved only by dialogue, and you can't solve anything with any other way.
Okay, Mr. Abu Shanab, excuse me interrupting you. Ismail Haniyeh is saying that there's serious movement within the realm of dialogue. Does this mean that Fatah and Hamas are now talking?
It means that this is a hope. Mr. Ismail Haniyeh is talking about a hope that he wants to achieve, and we all want to achieve.
Because we're getting lots of reports that there are secret talks happening between the two sides.
You can take the bite, you can take the thing by yourself in the media, but politically there is nothing really informed that there is a kind of negotiations or talks.
So you're denying that any talks are taking place at the moment?
I'm denying the formal no that there is something realistic we can talk about. I'm saying that there is nothing until now realistic we can talk about. We can only talk about hopes for having negotiations and talks between each others. I'm calling now for getting back again the reunity atmosphere between the Palestinians, between Fatah, Hamas and all the Palestinian movements. I'm calling now again Hamas to get back again and give up its consequences of the coup and to bring back back the unity between each other. I'm saying directly, now it's the step of Hamas. We are waiting for them.
Mr. Hamdan, how long can Hamas hold out for? I mean, we've got a humanitarian crisis unfolding in Gaza. You've got 1.4 million people there. Over 1 million of them are on handouts.
Unfortunately, the one who is responsible for this suffering for the Palestinian people in Gaza is Abu Mazen himself, who insists to close all the entrances and who is insisting to cut to prevent sending money and aids for the Palestinians inside Gaza. And he declared that yesterday by saying, I can't do anything for Gaza unless they give up for my authority. Because of this, I think he's the most responsible man for this, and no one can believe that he will secure the Palestinian people. He will work for their benefits while he is punishing maybe more than 1 million people of his own people, as he say. The second point which I want to say about the dialogue, excuse me, there is efforts from some Arabs to have this dialogue. It's clear that we are saying always yes, and Abu Mazen saying always no. At the same time, he's trying to have his own negotiations or dialogue with Olmert, who is killing his own people, who is putting his own people under siege. It's something unbelievable. No one can explain that, how he has the dialogue with his own enemies while he can't have the dialogue with his own people.
Okay, let's take a short break. But when we come back, we ask, does Abbas run a risk with his allies if he talks to Hamas? Stay with us.